Hello everyone, it's Sarah here and we are back at the Neverland Research Island once again as the situation with the new dangerous biological specimens continues to unfold. Will it be for better or for worse? Let's find out. But just quickly before we begin, please give us a like, share and subscribe to the channel, we really appreciate it. And that's it. Let's find out what this week's episode title, Observation, brought us. Once again, the show has improved from the last episode, really diving into that sci-fi horror, mad scientist, experiments gone wrong kind of vibe, and I really dug the episode. It seems to be a trend these days that the fourth episode of many TV shows is where it finally starts to get interesting, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but regardless, the episode was stellar, offered some real horrific looks at some of the new alien monsters, as well as giving us some real character development in some nice moments. The effects also look a lot more polished, with one exception during the sheep scene, where it looked a little bit goofy, but otherwise it kept my eye glued to the screen. Warning now, spoilers are coming. I repeat, spoilers are coming, so please skip to the timestamp on screen if you haven't seen the episode yet. I'll give you a moment. Okay. Still with us? Let's get started. At the end of the last episode, Wendy collapsed on the floor after being overwhelmed by the sound of the screaming xenomorph. So now we find her back on the repair table getting a full diagnostic. Of course, Boy Genius shows up and being the asshole he is, doesn't really give a shit about Wendy's condition. Rather that Kirsch isn't back at the lab running more experiments. Moments later, her brother Hermit shows up and this is all new to him. He still sees her as his sister, not a fancy piece of machinery. He also finds out that they brought the creatures here, which puts him on edge. After recalibrating Wendy's hearing, they feel as if they fixed the situation. No more Xeno cries of anguish. Well, not quite, as Boy Genius wants her to still be able to hear the alien and attempt to communicate with it, just not shut down again. Curly is also in the room and definitely jealous. Just another thing Wendy has that makes her unique, eh? But wait, there's more. Wendy is suddenly able to mimic the sound, so it seems she can communicate with the xenomorph. Man, if only they had that ability in the later movies, right? Guess Wendy never makes it out of this place. Hermit is definitely scared for his sister and his face looks like a sad puppy, kind of like Droopy the dog. Wendy shows him her room. It's basically the room of a 12-year-old girl, stuffies everywhere, crayon drawings, little knickknacks here and there. They finally have time to have this heart-to-heart about what it was like for him to have to essentially bury her. And he's not mad at her, of course, but rather his parents for lying to him. Again, something shows like this always struggle with is they state that these androids or so shouldn't have emotions. That's what separates them from regular humans. But she clearly has emotion, which sure you could argue that because she has a human brain pattern in there, she is part human. But if I remember biology class, emotions are a chemical reaction, and her chemicals are synthetic, right? But then how do you demonstrate that these androids are children trapped in adult bodies, without showing emotion? I mean, they could have gone the route of having them just be naive, something many other films have done. But it always comes back to the machine developing some kind of emotional response. Personally, I think the film Blade Runner handled this best, as it was part of the plot, a side effect of certain replicants, and Roy Batty explains it beautiful with his attack ships off the shoulder of Orion monologue. Anyway, Morrow contacts Slightly again and continues to manipulate him into trying to be his friend, trying to connect with him on a personal level by giving him details of his own life. It's like how a predator entices a child into getting into the van. It's just plain creepy. But it also seems to bother Morrow, which is interesting. I can imagine he feels like he's going to get in trouble being contacted by this adult. Kirsch comes into Slightly's room, and he seems to be aware that something is going on. He can't let go of what Morrow said to him before jumping out of that ship. When is a machine not a machine? Back in the lab, they are about to begin the animal testing phase of the research. If you love sheep or animals in general, you may not want to watch this part, as it's pretty gruesome. I'll skip the gory details and just say they introduce poor Sheepy to the testicle eyeball alien. However, as Kirsch, Boy Genius and Toodle study it, it seems to be studying them right back. Creepy. Once it's embedded into its host, it seems to have total control over the body, even able to make the sheep stand up on its hind legs like a humanoid. It tries to speak through the animal as well, but the animal doesn't have the right vocal cords for that. That's interesting. Cavalier is absolutely intrigued by this, and I'm pretty sure that thing is going to kill him, or at least take over his body before it runs into Zeno Daddy, who then ultimately kills him. Maybe? Dame and Arthur find a blind spot from the cameras in one of the garden biomes so that they can speak frankly about what's going on in the lab. Arthur is not happy. He thinks they should be focusing on the children, not these alien creatures. Not to mention that it's dangerous, but Dame thinks he's just being overdramatic. Oh girl, you can't be that blind, can you? They are then interrupted by Nibs, who claims she is pregnant. Wow. Lots going on this week. Now, we all know this is impossible. She's 98% machine, but she swears on it. Could she have something else living inside her, maybe? Maybe one of those weird tickworm things, or a Xeno embryo. Maybe the eyeball thing implanted something in her when it was trying to take her over, since we don't know how it reproduced yet. I think she's having a nervous breakdown trying to deal with the trauma of the attack and is manifesting this pregnancy as a way to explain why she feels like something else is controlling her body. Not to mention, who would the father even be? So many questions, many of which I don't actually want an answer to, given she's supposed to be a 9-year-old girl. I really hope they don't go down that road. Dame does try to counsel her, but there is definitely something wrong with Nibs, and she even shows signs of animosity towards her, lashing out when Dame tries to explain human procreation or brings up what happened at the crash. This is the first time any of them have felt real terror towards these child android hybrids, because if they truly have emotions, including anger and trauma response, with their strength and abilities, they can be quite dangerous. Well, she hits a silent alarm and some guards show up and get her secured into her room. Having Hermit at the research facility turns out to be a good thing, because he can evaluate Wendy in a way that the research team couldn't. Basically, since he knows her so well, her mannerisms, her humour, all of that, he's able to tell whether she's just imitating being human or if she's still genuinely Marcy. And for all intents and purposes, Hermit believes she truly is his sister. He feels uncomfortable assessing Wendy for the Prodigy Corporation, but they make him an offer he can't refuse. Either he does this and gets to keep his shiny new lung, or he gets sent back to whatever shithole he lived in with no further contact to his sister and a fat bill to pay off that said lung. Capitalism, yay! Cavalier then has a private meeting with Wendy, trying to manipulate her into helping him understand what the aliens are thinking and saying, in exchange for letting Hermit stay. A lot of manipulation is going on in this show, but of course she agrees. We then cut back to the animal testing, and Toodle wishes to change his name to Isaac, because he is a serious scientist and wants to be acknowledged as one. Kirsch agrees, and so now, he is Isaac. He then runs into Slightly, who's snooping around outside of the lab doing some spying for Morrow. Oh no, he tries to deflect, but Isaac senses something is off, but lets him off the hook anyway. Slightly contacts Morrow to tell him he can't, or rather won't, do what he asked, but Morrow is already a step ahead and is at his mother's house, threatening his family. Once again, Slightly gets pushed into a corner and has to agree to help. We get flashes of Kirsch during this conversation, and it seems he found a way to listen into the conversation. Wonder what he's gonna do. Kirsch is a peculiar character. While he is loyal to the company, he does exhibit a trait many of the synthetics in the films do, a kind of curiosity, to let things play out and see what happens. Kids and Hermit all meet up to have some ice cream and talk, and we get some insight into their different personalities. But one thing they can all agree on is they miss their families. Slightly and Smee in particular, who think they should demand that they are brought to the island, especially since Hermit is allowed to be here. But Curly and Isaac disagree, saying that they like it here and don't want to get kicked off the island, they get respect here and are doing something important. The episode ends with Wendy going to visit the labs and listening to the xenomorph facehuggers inside their eggs, while Hermit contemplates on whether he's doing the right thing by staying and studying his sister. Slightly watches him from the shadows, jealous and maybe even thinking he wants to eliminate him. And then Wendy goes over to the tank holding Hermit's old lung with the tadpole inside and sings to it, coaxing it out to say hello. Very creepy. Looks like it's able to gestate in any kind of living tissue. It doesn't need a whole body. And then we get the jump scare. And a chest burster is born, like a cobra dancer. Wendy's mimics its movements and calms it, communicating with it by making different sounds, and it even lets her pet it. What the actual fuck? So overall, I think this was the best episode in the series so far. The first one to truly feel like a part of the Alien universe. I still don't know how I feel about the heavy metal credit song choices. Not that I have anything against metal music, I actually love it. It just feels like the vibes don't mix with this type of program. That, or it reminds me of the horror films from the 90s, many of which were not any good. Again, I'm going to hold off giving the series any kind of rating until it finishes, but I can say I recommend checking this out 100%. I want to thank you all for checking out the review. What do you think of the show? Is it living up to your expectations? Would you pet an alien if it let you? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed our content, make sure to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to smash that bell icon to stay up to date with all our latest releases. I have been your host Sarah, and thank you for observing this episode with me today. Have a beautiful day and take care. Goodbye. Mwah.